There's a specific feeling I think a lot of us are familiar with right now. It usually happens late at night, maybe around 11 p.m. You're lying in bed, the house is finally quiet, the blue light from your phone is the only thing on, and you're scrolling through your banking app. You look at the number, and logically you know you're okay. You're making decent money, maybe even money that the 22-year-old you would have considered rich. But then you look at the outgoing transactions, the mortgage, the daycare, the groceries that somehow cost 40% more than they did 2 years ago, the insurance premium that just hiked up for no reason. And that feeling hits you. It's a tightness in the chest, a quiet realization that despite doing everything right, getting the degree, working the late nights, climbing the ladder, you aren't actually getting ahead. You're just maintaining. You are running faster than you ever have, just to stay in the exact same spot on the treadmill. Welcome to the new middle-class trap. It's not just that things are expensive, it's that the subscription fee for a normal, stable life has fundamentally changed, and nobody sent us the memo. Today, we need to have an honest conversation about why the math isn't mathing anymore, why 6 figures feels like the new 50,000, and, most importantly, how we stop feeling like we're drowning in a pool we were told was shallow. Let's rewind for a second. If you grew up in the 80s or 90s, we were sold a very specific package. The standard deal. You go to college, you take on a little debt, you get a job with benefits, you buy a starter home, and eventually you retire with a pension or a solid 401k. That was the blueprint. But for those of us between 28 and 45 right now, that blueprint feels less like a plan and more like a history lesson. Here is the reality that nobody wants to say out loud because it feels ungrateful. Making money doesn't solve money problems the way it used to. We have a term for this in the finance world, but it sounds clinical, so I rarely use it. They call them Henrys, high earners not rich yet. But I prefer to call them the golden handcuffs of expectations. See, the trap isn't just inflation. Inflation is the easy villain to point at. The real trap is the structural cost of entry into the middle class. Let's look at housing. This is usually the part where typical finance channels start throwing charts at you about interest rates. I don't want to do that. I want to talk about the feeling of home ownership today. For our parents, a home was a place to live that forced a savings account. For us, a home is a gladiatorial arena. If you were trying to buy now, you're competing against private equity firms and all cash offers. And if you did manage to buy, you're likely sitting on a mortgage that eats up 40% of your take-home pay, leaving you house poor. You have the asset, sure, but you can't enjoy your life because the walls around you are costing you your freedom. And if you're renting, you're watching the rent climb every lease renewal, wondering if you're throwing money away, paralyzed by the fear that if you don't buy now, you'll be locked out forever. That is a psychological weight that our parents didn't carry in the same way. That low-level anxiety that hums in the background of every decision. That's the trap tightening.
I get so tired of the narrative that tells us we're broke because of lattes. It's lazy, and honestly, it's insulting. If you are struggling to save money right now, let me absolve you of some guilt. It is not the $6 coffee. The middle-class trap is built on the non-negotiables, the things you literally cannot opt out of without endangering your family's health or safety. Let's talk about childcare. If you are a parent in this age bracket, you know this pain viscerally. In many states, putting 2 kids in daycare costs more than the rent. It costs more than a mortgage. It is essentially a second salary. So you have this impossible choice. One parent quits their career to stay home, or you work just to hand over 70% of that paycheck to a stranger so they can watch your kids while you work. It's a cycle that feels designed to keep you breaking even. Then there's healthcare. We treat it like a monthly bill, but let's be real. One bad accident, one unexpected diagnosis, and the middle-class security blanket evaporates. We're walking around with high deductibles, crossing our fingers, hoping nothing breaks. And then there are cars. Have you seen the price of a sensible family car lately? The average monthly car payment in America has skyrocketed. We normalized the $700, $800, $900 car payment. Think about that. Nearly $1,000 a month just for the privilege of driving to the job that pays for the car. This is the mechanics of the trap. It's a series of fixed costs, so when you get that raise or you get that bonus, you don't feel richer. You just feel like you can finally breathe for a month. You're catching up to the inflation of your own existence. Now, this is the part where we have to be a little hard on ourselves, because while the system is rigged, we are the ones oiling the machine. We live in the most visually comparative era in human history. In the 1970s, you only knew what your neighbor had. Today, you open Instagram or TikTok, and you aren't comparing yourself to Bob, you're comparing yourself to a curated, filtered highlight reel of the top 1% of the entire planet. You see the trips to Amalfi, the pristine beige aesthetic living rooms, the restocks of fridges full of organic juices that cost $12 a pop. Subconsciously, the baseline for what middle class looks like has shifted. We have confused middle class with luxury light. We feel like we need the perfectly decorated home, the specific brand of activewear, the annual Disney trip, the subscription boxes. Not because we're greedy, but because we're desperate to feel normal. This is the emotional hook of the trap. We spend money we don't have to buy things we don't need to impress people we don't know, but more accurately, to soothe the anxiety that we're falling behind. It's retail therapy on a macro scale. We buy the stuff because the security feels out of reach. If I can't afford to buy a house in a good school district, I might as well buy the nice espresso machine, right? At least that gives me a hit of dopamine today. It's a coping mechanism, and it's costing us our future. So how do we bridge the gap? How do we cover the difference between the stagnant wages and the exploding costs? Plastic. Credit card debt is at an all-time high, but the scary part isn't the total number, it's who holds the debt. It's not just people with low incomes, it's families making $150,000 a year. It starts innocently. You put the car repair on the Visa, you put the Christmas gifts on the Amex, you tell yourself, I'll pay it off when the tax return comes. But then the water heater breaks, or the dog gets sick, and the balance creeps up. The trap snaps shut when you start treating your credit limit as an extension of your income. I talk to people every week who make incredible money on paper, but they're living paycheck to paycheck because they're servicing 5 different debt payments. And the stress? It's corrosive. It affects your marriage. It affects your sleep. You become a manager of debt rather than a builder of wealth. This is exactly where the system wants you. A compliant worker who needs that next paycheck desperately, who can't afford to take risks, can't afford to quit a toxic job. Debt is the leash, and the middle class has a shorter leash than ever.
Okay, take a breath. That was the heavy stuff. If you're feeling tight in the chest again, let it out. Because acknowledging the trap is the only way to dismantle it. We can't fix the housing market overnight. We can't single-handedly lower inflation, but we can unlock the cage. Escaping the middle-class trap requires a radical shift in how we define success. Step 1 is stealth wealth. We need to stop trying to look wealthy and start trying to be wealthy. Real wealth is quiet, it's boring. It's driving a 5-year-old car with no payment. It's wearing a t-shirt from Target, but having 6 months of expenses in a high-yield savings account. You have to detach your self-worth from your material surroundings. This is the hardest part. It means not caring if people think you're struggling because you didn't upgrade your phone this year. Let them think what they want. You are buying freedom, not status. Step 2 is the enough number. Most of us are running a race with no finish line. We just want more. You need to sit down and define what enough looks like for you. Not for your parents, not for Instagram. What do you actually need to be happy? Maybe it's a smaller house but more travel. Maybe it's working part-time and cooking more at home. Once you define enough, you can stop running the marathon. You can step off the treadmill. Step 3 is aggressive simplification. If the structural costs are the trap, we have to attack the structure. This might mean making unpopular choices. It might mean moving to a lower cost of living area, even if it's not as cool. It might mean saying no to the expensive travel sports league for the kids and playing at the park instead. It's about ruthlessly cutting the things that don't bring deep value so you can fund the things that do. The middle-class trap is real, it is expensive, and it is exhausting. But you are not powerless. The system relies on your participation. It relies on you wanting to keep up. The most rebellious thing you can do right now is to calm down, to opt out of the comparison game, to decide that a smaller, simpler, solvent life is worth more than a big, flashy, leveraged one. You don't have to win the game everyone else is playing. You can flip the board over and play your own game. Go check that banking app again, but this time, don't look at it with fear. Look at it with strategy. Look at where the money is going and ask, is this buying me freedom or is this buying me a cage? You've got this. We'll figure it out. One paycheck, one decision at a time. Thanks for watching. If this resonated with you, do me a favor. Share it with someone who needs to hear that they aren't crazy for feeling this squeeze. I'll see you in the next one.